Welcome everyone to our studio and our next 3D LUT Creator Masterclass tutorial. Now, as always, our tutorials are a chance to clarify, revise, and extend your understanding application from studying with us, and thereby provide ongoing support for all of your creative endeavors. And from our consultations this week, we've certainly come up with some really interesting questions. And as I said, or at least I tried to emphasize in our reminder email, it's by first understanding pictures that we come to distinguish what needs to be done from what can be done. But without tools that prioritize analysis, poetics, and inquiry, our creative vision, its execution, its application, struggles to expand and enrich our understanding of pictures and how they affect us. It's a precarious and convoluted spiral worth avoiding whenever we can. And that's the whole point of applications like 3D LUT Creator. All right, so let's look at the topics for today, which are quite narrowcast, whereby 3D LUT Creator, in all instances, provides those tools, provides that workflow, provides that sensibility that enables us to quickly and efficiently cut through the noise and get to the solution, get to the outcome we desire. But along the way, beg these other questions that also need a little bit of revision, a little bit of extension. For example, the difference between color contrast and color variability. Why does saturation depend on brightness? And on it goes. So here are the topics for today. And the lead question gets to the heart of what I was just saying. Wanting to adjust colors to take on the appearance, in this case, of our classic Western European painting palettes, Rembrandt, Leonardo, and been trying to use 3D LUT Creator's match colors to reference tool and also manually dragging colors around to reference points and so on. It's just not working. What on earth is going on? There's also a question of taking a tonal curve from one image, one process, and using that on another image or another process, such as a platinum print made in the darkroom, and applying that tone curve to another printing process, such as inkjet pigment printing. And then some fundamental underlying distinctions, that saturation depends on brightness. Yes and no. It depends on the color model. Are we talking about us, the human visual system? Are we talking about a HSB, HSV color model? What about HSL? What about LAB? And on it goes. So this is quite convoluted and hence can be the source of confusion if we're not really clear from the outset. I would call it the problem of editing saturation, especially in Adobe applications, because we have a luminosity curve, but it doesn't work correctly. Blending on luminosity only prevents hue changing, saturation still changes in the wrong direction. If the metric we're using to understand these distinctions is the human visual system, how we perceive the world around us. As I said in the introduction, other considerations like color variability compared to colorfulness. And then at first, the fourth topic may seem an outlier, but I'm going to be looking at exactly these distinctions and applying more than one LUT to an image in 3D LUT Creator and so on. What is this external look and what is this mask alt mode in the masking module? Again, this is a means of analysis, of inquiry, not just the outcome of us doing certain things that we feel, that we believe aesthetically or otherwise, the image, its communication needs in order to achieve those outcomes. So there's the topics. Starting with this matching colors to reference facility, extraordinary levels of control, but only under our control if we understand the distinctions involved. And therefore, when it doesn't work, why isn't it working? What do I need to do? So let's begin with that first topic, matching our images to a set of reference colors. Here, for example, is one of our color palettes, averaging colors that I measured from paintings in museums all over the world. For example, a palette from Leonardo, where we've got 12 dominant pigments, from the highlights to the darkest values. And of course, device-independent LAB notation. Now, we turn these into equal amounts of each of those colors. So all the pixels are the same, because then when we look at it in a vector scope, as we will do in a second, we can see big blobs of color representing all of the pixels in these areas. It makes it really easy to identify. Now, let's compare and contrast this with a different version of the same palette. In our 3D LUT Creator workshop resources to also include a black point and neutrality, because a lot of these paintings, when you look at the histograms, what's lacking is a real black, and the light they're viewed under. The archival 50 lux or lower illumination in our museums also hides that. So let's ingest this into 3D LUT Creator. And at the moment, it's not a reference image, but there are the blobs of color on our vector scope. So this is a simple way to create a gamut that we then apply to another image. Let me show you. I'm going to change to a square grid where the distance between the nodes are equidistant. Pin neutrality, and let's reduce that to 6 nodes. And by dragging these nodes, to constrain the gamut to include just those colors represented in our color palette. Now, the image I'm going to bring in is one I use in the workshop for reference colors and reference palettes and so on. Then our gamut mapping will be applied to that image. And we can select all of the pixels, which means I can, while looking at the image in the A/B grid, which maps hue and saturation. And with our sliders, reduce or expand colorfulness, and there's the luminance function, and take middle gray and reposition particular values to neutralize other areas. Now, that's a simple way of mapping the gamut of one image and then constraining the representation of another image within that gamut. Let's reset, and this is now our working image. I'm going to command click on image from Photoshop, which loads that as a reference. C in our keyboard shortcuts from the workshop to compare, V to arrange them vertically, and so on. At the moment, this is my reference and this is my destination. If we look at that command, match colors to reference, under our edit menu, match colors means colors in an image, not a gradient of colors such as skin tone or blue sky. So we've got to use the right tool. But before I do that, I'm going to do a little bit of analysis with the Analyzer window, and in particular with swatches. Equals on the keyboard to go back to our reference file. With the eyedropper selected, let's reference these colors in the swatches. Now you can see they're being loaded on the right-hand side because this is the reference palette. Again, hitting equals back to our working image. Let's add a few points with this eyedropper and so on. We don't have to have equal number of points in each column, not at all. And right-clicking, I can change the readouts. But if I don't hold down the Shift key, I'm only changing the readouts for one sample. Let's repeat that, Shift, and load HSP values for every sample. So as we are making adjustments from this color palette to reference that color palette, then I can see the before and afters. And as we will do in answering other questions today, looking carefully at these numbers, not just what we see and feel. And we can pull up our gradations, the mapping of brightness against hue, the mapping of brightness against saturation to help us understand what we are needing to do. For example, what's in the foreground is our swimming pool. There's the distribution of hue from black to white. There's the distribution of saturation. If I click on reference, there is our color palette. And in the background is our working file. And you can see we have quite substantial moves that need to be made in order to move one closer to another. And we can also turn on our vector scope. We've got to make sure under the view menu to show the swatch points in the vector scope. And the swatch points highlighted in yellow. And there's the working image distribution in this vector scope. Remember, left clicking will enlarge that, and right clicking will give us the horizontal view. These are those most commonly used keyboard shortcuts in our notes. So there's all manner of ways we can visualize, and as we make adjustments, see those moves being made. I'll turn off the vector scope for the moment and note we're looking at the AB grid to begin with. Under our edit menu, match colors to reference. Now you can see the Gamut remapping, and we have that tutorial and 12 pages of notes on how to interpret and apply all of this. And we've got our vector scopes, we've got our histograms, our color sorting, and so on. And I'll just position it like so. Now, the first thing to note is the hue that is locked. So I might move that across to restore the hue of the pool. Now we can see the mapping of the mask. There we go. So these colors are now being locked in. We can change the range to include or exclude certain colors. Here's our on and off button, before and after. And over here in our color palettes, we can see numerically, but also visually, how these values are being remapped. And notice we are using the hue, saturation, and perceptual lightness metric. More about that when we discuss saturation and brightness later on. I now can adjust how much of the color composition, the hue and its intensity, the saturation, and how much of its tonal composition is being applied. Now, I've included black bars with this color palette, and that makes the luminance slider incredibly sensitive. If I didn't have those black bars, I'm at 100% to get the right tonal distribution of those color samples, but it's also about maintaining neutrality. So let's go back to our original and bring up our curves and repeat with the same settings that I had previously. I'm now noticing the effect on red, green, and blue curves, as you can see. Also, our luminance curve. We've gone from 100% lightness to this white point. So that's just a little bit of revision about using such tools and effects, sampled from our reference and applied to our working file. Let's have a look at another example. We're looking to create a colour palette from the National Gallery in London, a beautiful reproduction. It's so faithful on my ASO Colour Edge graphics monitor. We only need a handful of pixels. For example, in Photoshop, we've converted images into palettes, into test charts, using an average filter within individual tiles. For example, filter, pixelate, mosaic, and there's a sampling of 139. So let's command-click image from Photoshop to load that as my reference and repeat what we did. Let's clear all of those swatches, grab our eyedropper and load these samples into our palette. Let's sort those swatches by their brightness values. I'm now ready to load and compare that with my working image. Now let's look at this idea of saturation, colourfulness, colour variability, and so on. Let's ingest this into 3D LUT Creator as our working image. And let's again use that analyzer window and sample these skin tones. Let's sort those according to their perceived luminance. Let's shift and right click and select HSP. So I am measuring saturation versus brightness according to the HSP color model. But hang on, how do I actually perceive saturation versus brightness? And if I'm wanting to edit a portrait, what are the tools I need to edit the image so that it looks right? Here is a set of notes from our color artistry workshop looking at this topic, invoking the Hunt principle of color science that states our perception of color intensity or color purity, that's proportional to the level of illumination. Now, this is how we see colorfulness. This is setting us up to how do we then go about editing saturation relative to brightness so it looks the way we want it to look. Now, this is a simple experiment. In the studio, so I have complete control over the lighting of this tomato with a 4700 degree Solux bulb, the closest thing in those days to noonday sunshine. And there's a 4-second exposure, a 2-second exposure, and so on. So I'm changing the brightness, and you can see the saturation decreasing and increasing. Here are screenshots from the analyzer in 3D LUT Creator. The little circles show you the area I've sampled, from the most saturated visually to the least saturated. But here I'm reporting those same samples in different color models, noting the Hunt principle that we see colorfulness in proportion to the level of luminance. This is well understood from our everyday engagement with the world. Now, LCH, LAB, HSP, HSV, V for brightness. Let's have a look at HSV. Photoshop can report in HSV. So the hue is changing, the saturation is hardly changing at all. Yet the brightness is really changing. Hang on. This is reporting that the saturation is not changing. That is not what my brain is seeing and feeling. Thank you, but no thanks. That's not the metric I'm going to use to get numerical equivalence here or there between this face or that face or the same face. What about LAB? Oh, good luck, because there's no saturation component. A and B is hue and saturation combined. We go over this with color models in lots of workshops, not just this or the color artistry workshop. But what about the other device-independent color space, LCH? The same lightness as in lab, but now instead of A and B, chroma, intensity of color, and hue, the color of the color. Oh, look what happens to the chroma. With decreasing lightness, we have decreasing saturation. So if I'm wanting to measure and evaluate before editing to know what is happening, I want to be using a device-independent color model like LCH, or what about hue, saturation, and perceptual brightness? There's the hue angles, not changing at all. Here, as perceptual lightness decreases, so does saturation. So two color models, and this is what this paper goes on to explain in more detail, mimic what we're seeing and feeling. Now, back in 3D LUT Creator, in the Analyzer window, these numbers accord to the way my visual system is meant to respond and see and understand color. So when it comes to editing saturation relative to brightness and hue, either according to the human visual system or according to our fantasy, according to our mythologies, our desires, and whatever else gets in the way or complements what it is we're trying to understand and do, 3D LUT Creator can enable all of the above or any of the above at any time in any way we so desire. So as always, it's an absolute delight to share all of this with you, to try and answer some of those questions, to tease out and reinforce some of these key distinctions, and most importantly, to put them into real-world workflows, real-world outcomes that you yourselves can apply just as readily as I've been demonstrating here. But unless, as I said initially, we really understand what it is that our images are needing, we're up the creek without a paddle when it comes to how to navigate the wonderful facilitation of 3D LUT Creator and turn complexity into simple solutions. And through that exploration, through that understanding that comes from experimental interrogation, all manner of other possibilities can erupt out of the poetics that are buried within the undertaking, the inquiry, the analysis itself. Don't forget that analyzer window and the gradation and vector scopes and swatches and everything else, not only to simplify, but visualize what we're doing and thereby better understand how things need to be rather than how they are to satisfy those even more important criteria of our emotional well-being and our emotional and intellectual investment, the scholarship that we bring to bear on what it is we want to do. Take care. As always, I look forward to our next encounter. See you soon. Cheers.